I get shit done, I have fun. It's my time and I'm the one. I'm breaking through.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Business Renovator. This is Mental Fitness Day, Monday, and I wanted to talk about a particular book, A Better World, A Better You, and I want to take some excerpts out of it today and on future episodes. But before I do that, if you're watching this live today, thank you for being here. And if you're needing to catch us on the replay, remember #replay. Let us know where you're looking in from. And if you have a question you ever want to throw at the Business Renovator, send it our way and we'll do our best to answer that either directly or we'll get a guest and we'll talk about it in more detail. Happy to make that happen for you. But before we get started, here's a shameless plug from me. If you would like to get your business growth score figured out, go to coachphil.ca. It's free. Fill in the assessment, and there's nothing else to do other than to see what it tells you. And if you have a question or it brings something to your attention, if you want to have a complimentary coaching call, let me know and we can make that happen. But today, what I want to do is talk about this book here. A Better World, A Better You, written by Louis Tice, or as many know him as Lou Tice. He's no longer with us in the physical plane, but he's with me in here in my heart because of the impact he's had on me and the people I've gotten to coach along the way, whether they be athletes, business owners, entrepreneurs, salespeople, or anybody else with a heartbeat that I've had the pleasure and honor to work with. So today I wanted to talk about the thing called self-talk. You know, if we change what we think about changes, and really where all that comes from is our thoughts. And today is changing the way you think. So I've got this book open because I've got it underlined and all sorts of great notes because it's had a huge impact on me. And Lou talks about human beings think in 3 dimensions. We think in words, which trigger pictures, which create emotion. And these words, pictures, and emotions are recorded in our subconscious mind and then fashions them into beliefs. And as we go through this, the 3-dimensional form of thought is called self-talk. Now, is what you're saying to yourself taking you towards the end result that you desire, or is it taking you away from it? Are you worried about something, or are you looking forward with anticipation and excitement? Because what we think about most of the time is what we'll end up moving towards. So what he's talking about is controlling our self-talk so that we can use our subconscious to be an ally, a friend, and move us towards what we want and stop thinking about the things we don't want. To help you understand what I'm getting at here, in the book, he talks about to set the stage for how our self-talk works. Consider these 2 major premises. First of all, we move towards and become like that which we think about. And the second premise is the present thoughts determine your future, which is, basically what you bring about. So whatever you're repeatedly telling yourself with your own self-talk determines your beliefs and your self-image, which affect your behavior. Now, what I found to be true in this case is the more emotional connection you have to the outcome, whether you want it or not, the faster you get there. It turns on the creative juices to solve from the problem. So if you would ideally like to move towards something that you're aspiring to do, become, or to experience, it really is in your best interest to think about the end result as if it's already done. It's amazing when you start looking forward to things. It's kind of like goal setting. What's the I'm going to bring that on. What's the difference between self-talk and hearing voices? Well, if you're in good mental health, nothing, because the self-talk and hearing the voices in your head is yourself talking to yourself. At least that's the way I see it. If your mental health is not up to par, then that's a different thing. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. This is my own experience, my own journey. So that's a really tricky question to answer. I guess it really depends on where you are with your mental health. If you're healthy mentally, then to me, self-talk and hearing voices, same thing. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Bruce, but hopefully it does. So one of the things I like to think about is we're in the business of BS to ourselves. So we need to believe it before we can see it. We don't see it first. We need to believe that we can make something happen. We need to believe that we can help people. We need to believe that we have the ability to make change happen before we can see it. As we start to think about it and believe it and get the emotional connection to it, then we start to see it, start to move towards it. Bob Proctor, when he was alive, he used to talk about things like this thing, it's a cell phone. And at first, it hasn't been around all that long when you think about it, but it was not here in the physical plane until somebody thought about the possibility of it. Might even gone as far back as Marconi, who talking about voices in your head. He was locked up, incarcerated because they thought he was mentally ill. And what he was thinking about was seeing the future, utilizing wavelengths to be able to communicate over distance without any wires. And people thought he was crazy. They thought he had voices in his head, but what he had was a belief in being able to communicate in a different way that nobody had ever thought about. So because they didn't believe it, they couldn't see it, but he believed it and saw it. And anyway, the rest is history. If it wasn't for him and pushing through his own goals and aspirations and not letting people tell him what to do, we wouldn't have this device, because a cell phone is essentially radio waves, I believe, isn't it? Isn't that what Marconi was all about? Isn't it interesting where we go on this? Anyway, I wanted to talk about some other things about this, what I've gotten out of this book. This, let me tell you a little bit about Luke Tice. I should have introduced him a little bit before. I was first introduced to his teachings in the early 1990s, a few decades ago, and he started his business, I think, in the 70s, and he had an impact on people like Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy went down to visit this guy in Seattle to find out more about what he was about, and he had a huge influence on Brian Tracy. So he's had an impact even on Jack Canfield. I don't know if you guys remember who he is. Jack Canfield's famous for teaching us about the E+R=O. That's event plus our response equals our outcome. So if we don't like our outcome, change either the event, change how we respond to the event, and create a different outcome. Not immediately, but by changing our self-talk, it helps us in that arena. Lou's claim to fame when he was starting out, I remember him talking about this, is he was a high school football coach, and he took the vow of poverty. He had about $1,000 a month in wages and about 19 kids, foster kids and adopted kids that him and his wife raised. And he went from that to having a huge impact on the world in different countries like South Africa with the apartheid. He helped in the world with the Irish challenges with fighting between the Protestants and the Catholics. And I met a young woman that was at a Lou Live event back in 2011, I think we got there in September, this month actually. And when I talked to her, she was telling me that how Lou had helped her get together an entourage to help Bulgaria move from communism to a capitalistic free society. So the man has done some amazing things. Athletes, the Edmonton Oilers in the National Hockey League, when they had their dynasty, Lou Tice was in the background helping them change the way they thought. And well, if you look at history, if you followed hockey, they'd have massive success. 5 Stanley Cups for a young team like that. That was pretty awesome. And the impact he's had on me has allowed me to teach myself to live at a higher level of accomplishment in the areas that are important to me. Doesn't mean I get absolutely everything I think about, but it moves me towards things in a way that I hadn't done before. It takes complicated psychological phraseology and turns it into something that I can understand, I can assimilate, and help others do the same thing. One of the things out of the chapter we're looking at today is this formula here, I times V equals R. And what Lou's talking about here, our imagination times the vividness of it equals our reality. So what are we focusing on most of the time? And how much energy and emotion do we have tied into it? The more emotion and fuel we have, the faster we'll get there. The more creative the solutions will be to make it happen. Where that showed up for me was I have a software product specific to the directional drilling world. And the reason I acquired it was because when I met the fellow who originally authored it, Randy Reel, he was a brilliant man. He was taken way too early in life. He was just way too young. He had a heart of gold, and if he was your friend, he was your friend, and he would help you in any way possible. He was a big contributor to a variety of different things. So when I met him at the airport after volunteering for a committee to help welcome dancers coming to a dance stampede that he was involved with, we got talking, and he was telling me about the software. And the software is for directional drilling. What's that got to do with anything? Well, just this story, that's all. It's not important about the self-talk side. But what it helped me manifest was once he passed, I took it out of his, I bought it from his estate. His wife really disliked the product because he took a lot of his time and energy to write it, to program it. And he wasn't even really a programmer. But anyway, that's another story. He was such a great guy. I want his legacy to live on. And knowing what I know about software is that, best laid plans or best made plans often go awry with development of software because you underestimate how long it's going to take and what the cost is to make it happen. And there's also spec creep where you come up with some ideas and feedback from other people. So what do you do with that? You add it to the program. So I didn't want to risk my mortgage on my house or my house being taken away because of my commitment to the software program. So I wanted to creatively and innovatively find a way to get the software rewritten because I knew that once Windows XP went away, Randy's legacy would die. It wouldn't live on. And so it was really important for me to help that stay on. I was more interested in the legacy than I am in the product, although the product is really good because going through the process of knowing what I want and why I wanted it and stifling the how, I kept interviewing and talking to different people. And it took me a couple of years to get her done, but I didn't want to ransom myself out. So what ended up happening was I got in touch with an individual who ended up becoming a partner because he ended up making the software, modernized it so it's been able to migrate through all the different operating systems that Windows thrown at us, and it still runs and functions effectively. It's such a powerful yet easy tool to use in that space in the directional drilling world. And why I'm telling you that story is I knew very little about directional drilling. I didn't even know I could bend pipe. But when you get a burning desire, when you turn your self-talk onto what it is you really, really want and go after it and don't give up, like this didn't happen overnight. Matter of fact, I was thinking about shutting it down one time with because I went into the coaching space, which is really my happy space, really like helping people in business and entrepreneurs and sellers live a more productive, abundant life for themselves so that they can help others as well. That's where my passion is. But again, going back to Randy's legacy, it was really important for me to make that happen. So the software is really easy to use. And the fellow that wrote it never knew anything about directional drilling. And he took the time to forensically reverse engineer it, write it in a way that makes it move forward. So knowing what we want and why we want it, and stifling the how. And as I've got the quote here, let me see if I can find it. This one here is kind of cool. It's our get-to-itiveness and our stick-to-itiveness by Orson Swett Martin. That's what he talks about. But before I had heard that quote, I'd had a ton of this sticky stuff that helped me get to the place where the software became what it is today, and it still continues to support people in that space. I've had some people say, because I'm getting older, I guess long in the tooth, they want to make sure that the software is still available. What's going to happen when I disappear? Well, that's another story for another day. But going back to this, get off your butt and stick to it approach that Orson talks about is really one of the things that helped me get through the challenges of writing the software. Another thing is, if you think like a winner and expect to win, this is controlling our self-talk, isn't it? And something I got from modifying a quote that I saw from Pat Hazel, who's a brilliant creative individual. When we were in a group in 2020 at the start of the pandemic, he had something in this group. He said, yes, you expect sales, but I wanted to take it further than that. So I changed it. You expect success. So going back to what Lou was talking about, I times V equals R, knowing what you want and forgetting about how to make it happen. Like, you're going to learn how to make it happen. You don't need to know the how right away. By getting crystal clear, like Lou was talking about, we move towards and become like that which we think about. That's point one. And point two is your present thoughts determine your future. So what are you thinking about? Is it moving you towards the ideal future that you'd like to live, experience, and have? Or is it taking you away? There's so many nuggets in this book. It's just amazing. It's actually based on a program he had, Lou had, called Investment in Excellence for the 90s, which is where I ended up getting involved with him. He also says here, to the degree that you focus on what you don't want, you will be drawn into that direction. So have you ever known anybody like that? How about yourself? It takes discipline to control your focus, because you'll have people in your family, your company, your social groups who will want to sit around and talk about what's wrong in life. They'll be like, business is no good. This equipment sucks. The food was terrible. That's negative, destructive talk. So I also refer to that as this. And I just want to go find it real quick because I know I've got it in here. Think like a winner, problem, challenge. It's really about the mindset you have. Are you a victor or are you a victim? Do you take responsibility for the things in your life, or do you wallow in despair and blame? So victor is you're proactive, you take responsibility, you own the situation, even if you didn't cause it. You have a vision for something better, which is going back to what Lou Tice was talking about, looking at what you want versus what you don't want. And then you strive to do it with excellence, not perfection, but excellence. Then the flip side to that, below the line, as we would say, is victim. And that is you blame people, you make excuses, your disposition is very negative, you deny things, and you live in this place called scarcity. You don't see the possibility and the good things in life. You're dwelling on all, just like was just in this sentence here, where he was talking about no business is no good, the equipment isn't worth a darn, the people are terrible, the food was awful. It really stop thinking like that. There's a story in here. Let me read this one, then I'm going to wrap up the show today. It says, imagine yourself teaching your teenager to drive. The kid's driving down the road, crowding the center line, and you can visualize a head-on collision any minute. So you say, hey, watch out for the oncoming cars. Where's the kid's focus going to go? He's going to look at the oncoming cars. So that's not a very good idea, because automatically his subconscious tells his fine motor muscles, aim for those cars. When the kid drifts over the line, you probably get upset and say, get over on the curb. Those words trigger another picture, and the kid drives where? Onto the curb, probably. And you get mad as hell. and you say, watch out for the park card, smacko right into the park card. Remember the loser's motto? If at first you don't succeed, fix the blame fast. Well, you think it's the problem, kid? Why don't you listen to me? Well, it's just probably he was listening to you, and at the subconscious level, under that, like think back when you're learning how to do something new, like learn how to drive a car. Were you tense? Were you stressed out? Were you able to do things automatically? Yeah, keep it between the lines. Tell them where you want them to go, not where you don't want to go. So in that example, that was a parent teaching a child what to focus on. And the focusing on part was where he didn't want the child to go. So are you a victor or are you a victim? Anyway, that's the show for today. And like always, what I'd like to do is remind you to be this. Just have to go find it. It's right here. Be wonderful. The U in wonderful is deliberately a U, not an O, because you are unique and you are wonderful. So maintain that and continue to be your awesome self. Actually, wonderful self, right? That's it for us. We'll catch you on another edition of the Business Renovator. Have a wonderful rest of the week.
I get shit done. I have fun. It's my time and